Hey family, last Sunday we looked at Luke chapter 8 verses 22 through 25 and we considered what it looks like for us to trust God through our storms. And so I wanted to dig a little deeper and say, okay, exactly how do we go about growing in our trust in God through our storms? Now if we look at chapter 8 verse 25, the disciples really give us a picture of what we can do in order to grow in our trust in God. It says in verse 25, Jesus said to them, "Where's your faith?" And they were afraid. They were afraid because of the power they had seen. And they marveled, saying to one another, "Who then is this that he commands even the winds and water, and they obey him?" So the disciples have this two-pronged response to God and his power expressed in Jesus Christ. First of all, they are afraid. And they're in this sense of awe and wonder at what he does. And then secondly, they ask this question, who is this guy? Now, we may not respond exactly the same, but these two things we can do. We can cultivate a greater sense of awe at who God is, and also we can remind ourselves, not just ask the question, but remind ourselves of who Jesus is. First of all, we want to cultivate a sense of awe in who God is. We can look around at creation, at sunsets, at insects, and if we will take a moment and pause as we look at God's creation, we can begin to cultivate a sense of awe in what he's done. We can also look at the scriptures and see what the scriptures say about the greatness of God. We can look at Romans chapter 1. We can look at Colossians chapter 1. We can look at many of the Psalms and consider what God has said about how he's done amazing things. Secondly, we can remind ourselves of who Jesus is. We can remember that he is sovereign. We saw even in this story that Jesus was sovereign. He was in control. He was in charge over the waters, over the waves, over the wind. Jesus is sovereign. And we can remember that he has done amazing things for us. He is good for us. And these things are good to remember. They can help us to trust him at a greater level. So we do two things. We cultivate a greater awe for God, and then we remember who Jesus is for us. Love you, family.